People say families break slowly, over years of small misunderstandings and unspoken resentments. Mine shattered in a single moment, a moment no one saw coming, least of all me. And the one who held the mirror up to everyone's lies wasn't an adult. It was my 8-year-old son. I want you to imagine walking into a birthday dinner thinking you were finally doing something good, something healing. I wanted to show up for my mother. I wanted her to see that I was trying. But within minutes of walking through her front door, my siblings attacked me so publicly that my mother cried and called me an ungrateful daughter. In that moment, I felt like every version of my childhood disappointment replayed in my body, heavy and suffocating. And yet someone else in that room felt the weight even more intensely. My son, Caleb Martin. He's 8 years old, small for his age, sensitive in ways that make people underestimate his strength. He has these wide brown eyes that always look like they're searching for fairness in the world. He usually hides behind me during family events, but that night, he became the bravest person in the room. I didn't know it yet, but he was about to expose 47 lies with one video. Let me introduce the cast of this disaster because knowing who they are explains why the moment hit the way it did. My sister, Rachel Whitford, the oldest of us. She walks into every room like she's auditioning for a role no one asked her to play. At family events, she positions herself where everyone can see her. She likes compliments the way sunflowers like sunlight. She calls herself the caretaker of the family, but it's really a title she uses as armor. If she is the caretaker, everyone else becomes the disappointment. My brother, Kyle Whitford, the echo of Rachel. He rarely forms his own opinions. Instead, he copies hers like a shadow with a voice. Whatever she says, he nods at. Whatever she criticizes, he frowns at. He has never defended me, not once. Then there's my mother, Elaine, the woman who raised us with a mix of love and quiet judgment. She can be warm, but she is also easily influenced, especially by Rachel. I've spent my adult years trying to repair something between us, but every time I get close, she pulls away. Caleb is my son, my heart, my little anchor. He's grown up watching me try to keep the peace. He holds on to fairness like it's oxygen. He's the one person who sees everything, even the things I try to hide behind a smile. Now picture this. We're all gathered in my mother's living room. The decorations are simple. A happy birthday banner hangs slightly crooked. The dining table is set with her cherished blue and white china. The cake is sitting on the counter, still in its box. Everyone is talking loudly, laughing, pretending this family has no cracks. The moment we sit down, the tension begins. Rachel stands, tapping her glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. She whispers a dramatic thank you to everyone for being there for Mom, and then looks directly at me with a tight smile. Some of us, she says, actually make the effort. I'm the only one who visits her regularly. Kyle grins and says loudly, "Yeah, Maddie abandoned the family. Someone had to step up." People laugh awkwardly. Some look down at their plates. My face burns. I open my mouth to respond, but my mother speaks first. Her voice trembles. "I raised an ungrateful daughter. I didn't think this is who you'd become." It feels like the air has been punched out of my lungs. Caleb looks at me, horrified. He whispers, "Mom, that's not true." I squeeze his hand and reassure him I'm okay, even though I'm not. And then something changes in him, a stillness, a decision forming in the quiet spaces behind his eyes. He stands up suddenly. Everyone stops talking. He walks to the TV with the remote in his hand. His small fingers shake, but his voice doesn't. He says, "Grandma, I made a video for you. It's every time we visited your house and you pretended you weren't home, all 47 times. The room falls completely silent. No breath, no movement, nothing. And that is the moment everything cracks open. Caleb presses a button, and the truth begins playing on the screen. Before the chaos of that night unfolded, before my son stood in front of the TV, holding the truth in his trembling hands, I walked into my mother's house with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. A quiet, cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, this birthday dinner could be a reset button. A chance to reconnect. A chance for my mother to see who I really was, not who my sister painted me to be. My name is Madeline Martin, though most people call me Maddie. I'm a single mother raising my son, Caleb, in a small suburban neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. My life isn't glamorous. I work full-time as a medical receptionist, juggle bills, pack lunches, check homework, and try my best to build a peaceful life for my son. I don't have the free time my sister always seems to have, or the disposable income to throw weekly brunches the way she does. But I show up for my son. I work hard. I try to be kind. And I try to keep Caleb connected to the family he deserves, even when the family itself makes that difficult. Growing up, our house was filled with contradictions. My mother, Elaine Whitford, loved us, but she expressed that love unevenly. Rachel, the oldest, was the star child, the reliable one, the golden one. Kyle, the middle child, was the carefree one who never got punished deeply for anything because boys will be boys. And then there was me, the youngest. I was sensitive, quiet, and always the easiest to blame. I grew up being told I was dramatic, emotional, and too easily hurt, as if those traits were character flaws that needed fixing instead of signs I was craving connection. As adults, the dynamics never changed. Rachel slipped naturally into the role of family spokesperson. Small disagreements became public verdicts. Simple misunderstandings became character assessments. Every time I tried to reconnect, Rachel managed to twist it into something selfish or convenient. And my mother, who trusted Rachel's version of events far more than mine, always believed her. Still, I tried, especially for Caleb. He loves his grandmother with the kind of pure, uncomplicated love kids have. When he was younger, he used to ask me why Grandma didn't hug him the way she hugged his cousins. I told him she was just shy or tired or not feeling well that day. I never told him the truth, that I wasn't sure my mother even liked being around me or him. I didn't want him to carry that weight. That's why we visited so often, even when we got no answer at the door, even when I saw the shadow of her feet under the curtain, even when she ignored my calls. I kept coming because Caleb wanted to, and because a part of me hoped that showing up would change something. Now, standing in her living room on her 68th birthday, I tried not to let the familiar dread get to me. The decorations were soft and homey, a crooked happy birthday banner, a vase of grocery store flowers, and the scent of her favorite vanilla candles drifting through the house. Guests milled around, laughing and chatting as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened in this family. Caleb held my hand as we walked in. He wore a little button-down shirt I ironed that morning, determined to help him look presentable. He squeezed my fingers as his eyes scanned the room. He was excited to be there. Even after all the times she ignored us, he still believed she would be happy to see him. I wished I had his optimism. My mother emerged from the hallway wearing a soft cardigan and a tired smile. She hugged Rachel first, then Kyle, and then the cousins. When she reached Caleb, she gave him a quick pat on the shoulder. When she reached me, she nodded stiffly without opening her arms. It stung, but I swallowed it. We took our seats at the table. The plates were neatly arranged, the napkins folded, the bowls filled with my mother's favorite dishes. The clinks of forks and small talk filled the room. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Caleb leaned close to me and whispered, "Do you think Grandma liked the picture I drew for her?" I nodded and told him yes, even though I wasn't sure. He pulled the drawing from his bag, crayons, marker outlines, bright colors, a picture of him and Grandma holding hands. He practiced giving it to her in the mirror earlier that day. My heart ached, knowing how much effort he put into making her feel loved. I tried to relax. I tried to believe maybe this birthday dinner would be different. Maybe my siblings would be civil. Maybe my mother would see that I came because I cared. But then Rachel lifted her glass. And the moment she spoke, everything spiraled. The comfort vanished. The warmth evaporated. The path to healing slammed shut before it even opened. I didn't know it then, but the person who would fight for me wasn't me. It was the little boy sitting quietly beside me, watching everything. And he had been preparing for this night far longer than I realized. The shift in the room was almost physical. One moment, the clinks of silverware and soft chatter filled the air. The next, a sudden pause settled over the table. It happened the moment my sister, Rachel, placed her wine glass down with a deliberate tap. That sound was like a starter pistol signaling the beginning of a disaster I didn't see coming. She stood with practiced confidence, her shoulders pulled back, her chin slightly lifted as if she were about to give a speech she'd rehearsed. She flashed a tight smile, the kind she used when she wanted everyone to believe she was gracious and selfless. "I just want to say something," she began. "Mom, I'm so glad we're all here to celebrate you tonight. You deserve this. You deserve people who show up." Her eyes slid straight to me. "People who actually visit." I felt the sting before anyone else reacted. Rachel didn't need to name me. The implication was sharp enough to pierce through the table. Kyle chuckled under his breath, leaning back in his chair with that smug, careless posture he always had when he was supporting her. "Yeah," he said. "Some of us don't abandon the family. Some of us actually care." A few guests exchanged awkward glances. Someone coughed. Someone else reached for their water glass. The discomfort was obvious, but Rachel thrived on it. She loved moments where she got to play hero at my expense. I forced a calm voice. "Rachel, that's not fair. You have no idea how many times—" She raised her palm, silencing me. "Please don't start with excuses," she said. "Mom needs people who make an effort. You can't just show up when it's convenient. Being a daughter isn't seasonal, Maddie." Kyle nodded like a bobblehead. "You can't keep acting like the victim. You're always so dramatic." The words felt like old bruises being pressed, childhood labels being peeled back just to be slapped onto me again. But what hurt the most wasn't Rachel's smugness or Kyle's mockery. It was my mother's expression, her lips trembling, her eyes watery, her face battling between hurt and frustration. She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I raised an ungrateful daughter. I tried so hard with you, Maddie. I don't know why you turned out this way." Her voice cracked at the end, and it shattered something in me. The little girl inside me, the one who spent years trying to be soft, quiet, kind, anything to be loved, felt that sentence like a direct wound. Caleb stiffened beside me. Even at 8 years old, he understood exactly what had been said, exactly what it meant. His fork halted midair. His eyes, normally gentle and curious, narrowed ever so, slightly. I placed my hand on his back, ready to reassure him, but he pulled away just enough for me to know something was changing inside him. That quiet shift I'd seen earlier was evolving into something sharper. I took a deep breath and tried to speak. "Mom, that's not true. I visited, over and over. Caleb and I—" Rachel laughed under her breath. "Oh, please. If you visited, Mom would know. Don't lie." "I'm not lying," I said, but the room was already turning against me. Kyle muttered, "Sure you aren't," loud enough for everyone to hear. My mother looked down, avoiding my eyes, as if facing me would make her betray the version of events Rachel had sculpted for her. Caleb's small hand gripped the edge of his chair. His knuckles whitened. He stared at the table, then at my mother, then back at Rachel. Something was building, something I didn't understand. Then Rachel leaned forward, twisted her mouth into a false, concerned expression, and said, "I get it, Maddie. You're busy with work or whatever, but motherhood doesn't excuse neglect. You should be honest for once." I felt heat rise up my neck. I haven't neglected anyone. Rachel spoke louder, as if the volume would make her more believable. "Sure. So tell everyone here the last time you visited Mom. Go ahead, tell the truth." The irony was suffocating. I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could form a word, Caleb stood. The movement was sudden enough to draw every eye in the room. His chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. His little shoulders squared in a way I'd never seen before. Rachel blinked. "Caleb, sweetheart, sit down. This isn't your—" He cut her off, his voice steady and clear. "Grandma, that's not true. Mom didn't abandon you." My heart skipped. My mother froze. Rachel's eyebrows lifted in irritation. Caleb continued, "We visited a lot, almost every week, for years." Rachel scoffed. "Oh, honey, that's sweet, but your mom—" He didn't let her finish. "And she didn't lie." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I have the videos." The table fell silent. Someone dropped a fork. Kyle leaned forward. "Videos of what?" Caleb swallowed, lifted his chin, and said the sentence that stopped every breath in the room. "Every time we visited and Grandma pretended she wasn't home. All 47 times. Rachel's jaw tightened. Kyle's mouth fell open. My mother's eyes widened in shock, And I sat there, barely breathing, realizing my son had been quietly documenting 2 years of heartbreak without me ever knowing. The conflict wasn't just in the room anymore. It was spreading, cracking open every lie my siblings had built. And Caleb was about to show them all. When Caleb said he had videos, the room froze in a way that didn't feel natural. It wasn't just quiet. It was the kind of silence that made you feel every heartbeat, every breath, every drop of tension in the air. My mother's hand paused in midair. Rachel's spine stiffened. Kyle's eyebrows pulled together like he wasn't sure whether to be defensive or suddenly afraid. I stared at Caleb, stunned. My mind raced through possibilities. He didn't have videos. He couldn't have videos. I never asked him to record anything. I never even knew he was paying attention during those visits, let alone documenting them. How could he have known to do something like that? Why would he? Caleb stood beside his chair, holding his little phone in both hands. His fingers shook slightly, but he didn't hide them. He didn't back down. His voice didn't match the smallness of his body. It was steady, clear, and anchored in something stronger than anger, truth. "Mom didn't abandon anyone," he said again, this time with more strength. "We came all the time. Grandma didn't open the door. You guys weren't there. She was." Rachel lifted one manicured hand. "Caleb, sweetheart, I know you're trying to help your mom, but you don't understand how things work. Adults have—" He cut her off before I could stop him. "I understand enough. You're lying about Mom." The room snapped like a cracked wire. Kyle leaned forward. "Watch yourself, kid. No one's lying." Caleb turned to him sharply. "Yes, you are." My mouth fell open. Caleb had never spoken to an adult like that. He'd never raised his voice at family, never challenged someone older. This wasn't disrespect. This was courage shaped by pain he'd carried far too long. I whispered, "Caleb, honey, let's just sit down and—" He shook his head. "No, I'm telling the truth. You don't have to fight them anymore, Mom." My throat tightened. His words hit me harder than any insult ever thrown my way. He'd been watching everything. He'd been noticing things I'd tried to shield him from, and he'd been quietly preparing for this moment without me realizing. Caleb stepped away from the table and walked toward the TV mounted on the wall. Each small footstep echoed. Rachel's head jerked toward my mother. Kyle stared at me like I should stop him, but I didn't. Not because I wanted him to do this, but because I could see something in his eyes that told me this wasn't impulse. This was resolution. When he reached the TV, he reached up on his toes and grabbed the remote from the shelf under it. His hands were trembling now, but he held the remote firmly, like he'd practiced this step in his mind many times. Rachel stood abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. "Absolutely not. We're not doing this. Caleb, that's enough." My mother shot her a confused, desperate look. "What is he talking about? What videos?" Caleb didn't answer either of them. Instead, he navigated the TV menu like he'd memorized it. He tapped on the screen share icon, then clicked the option to connect his phone. When the little pop-up appeared accepting the connection, the TV blinked, went dark for a second, then illuminated with Caleb's phone screen. That's when Rachel panicked. She rushed forward a step. "Madeline, tell him to stop. This is inappropriate. He's a child." I stood slowly, my body moving without conscious thought. My voice, surprisingly steady, said, "He's not hurting anyone. He's showing the truth." Rachel's nostrils flared. "You can't be serious. He's just confused. He's manipulating." This time, I cut her off. "He's not confused, and he's not manipulating anyone. He's telling you what you don't want to hear." Kyle muttered, "This is ridiculous. A kid's phone isn't evidence." Caleb turned around, his voice calm. "It is when the videos are real." Then he looked at my mother. Everything inside him softened. His expression shifted from defensive to something heartbreakingly sincere. "Grandma," he said quietly, "I made a video for you." My mother blinked, tears forming again. "A video? For me?" He nodded. "I wanted you to see how many times we tried to visit you. I wanted you to know we weren't lying. I filmed it because I didn't want Mom to feel sad anymore." My chest tightened. My mother covered her mouth. Caleb took a breath, his small shoulders rising. "It's every time we came to your house and you pretended you weren't home, all 47 times in 2 years." One of the guests whispered, 47? Another said. He kept track? Caleb faced the TV. He scrolled through the videos folder. Dozens of thumbnails appeared on the screen, each clip with a date above it. The room absorbed the truth in a way words alone never could. Then Caleb clicked on the video labeled, "Grandma Visits, 47 Tries." The turning point wasn't Caleb playing the video. The turning point was when the adults in that room realized a child had been carrying the truth for years because none of them cared enough to see it. The moment Caleb pressed play, the TV filled with the shaky angle of a phone camera held by a small child. The audio was low at first, just the rustle of the car's interior and the faint hum of the engine. Then Caleb's tiny voice echoed through the living room, younger, softer, from nearly 2 years earlier. "Mom, maybe she's sleeping." My heart lurched. The clip showed me standing at my mother's front door holding a tin of cookies Caleb and I had baked. I knocked. I waited. I glanced at the windows. The curtains shifted just an inch, enough for the camera to catch it. The room around us now reacted with a collective inhale. The next clip began automatically. A different day, a different season. Leaves scattered across the driveway. Caleb's small finger appeared on screen as he pointed. "Her car's here, Mom. Look." His voice cracked with hope. On the TV, I approached the door again, smiling nervously, holding Caleb's school project, a colorful paper turkey he'd made, in class. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Nothing. The camera zoomed a little as Caleb tried to get a better angle from the back seat. Behind the curtains, a silhouette moved. In my mother's living room now, that same silhouette sat with her hand over her mouth, her eyes glued to the screen. The third clip started. This time, snow covered the porch. I was wearing my thick winter coat, hat pulled low. I held a Christmas gift bag. Inside it was a sweater Caleb had picked out for my mother. The camera caught me turning back toward the car with a defeated smile. "Maybe she stepped out," I'd said to Caleb. And in the video, Caleb whispered, "Her shoes are on the porch." A murmur rose around the table in the present. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Rachel's jaw clenched so hard it looked painful. Kyle rubbed the back of his neck, cheeks flushed. Clip after clip played, each one more painful than the last. Clip 7, clip 12, clip 19, clip 26, clip 31, clip 40. Each clip carried a different season, different clothing, different gifts, different reasons to hope, and ended the same way. Me knocking, my mother ignoring. Caleb filming quietly, trying to make sense of what he was witnessing. In clip 22, my voice trembled as I said, "I don't want you to think she doesn't love you. She's probably busy." And Caleb whispered back, "I think she forgot." Across the table, my mother choked back a sob. "I didn't forget," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. "I didn't forget." But the video kept rolling, indifferent to her denial. Clip 35 hit the room like an emotional blow. The camera captured me standing on the porch holding Caleb's hand. He was tired, school backpack slung over one shoulder. "Grandma, we made you a card," he said, knocking with gentle taps. "Please open, please." Inside the living room now, my mother broke completely. Tears ran down her cheeks in steady streams. She whispered Caleb's name over and over. Clip 47 was the hardest. It was recent, only weeks before the birthday dinner. In the video, I knocked with a hesitant rhythm, worn out from trying. Caleb sat in the car, filming through a crack in the window. His voice was no longer hopeful. It was tired, older. "Mom, she's not going to open." On the screen, I stood there for a long moment. Too long. Long enough that present-day guests felt the weight of it deep in their own chests. Then Caleb's small voice in the video whispered, "You don't have to try anymore." The camera panned to me as I whispered back, "I just want her to love you." The screen froze on that frame. Me on the porch, shoulders slumped, holding Caleb's handmade card in my hand. In the present moment, no one spoke. Rachel's face had drained of color. Her hands trembled on the table. She looked at my mother and said, "Mom, did you know about any of this?" My mother shook her head, sobbing. "I didn't want to see her. I thought she didn't want me," Kyle muttered. "This is unbelievable. I thought she made all that up." Caleb stood in front of the TV, looking straight at my mother with soft, heartbreaking sincerity. "Grandma," he said quietly, "we weren't lying. We tried to see you. We wanted to be with you. That was the moment the truth shattered every false story my siblings had built. My son, my 8-year-old son, had exposed something none of the adults had the courage to confront. The real abandonment hadn't been mine. It had been hers. And for the first time in decades, the truth finally spoke louder than Rachel's voice. The TV screen stayed frozen on that final frame, me on the porch, holding Caleb's handmade card. Long after the video ended, no one moved, no one breathed. It felt like the whole room was suspended in that moment, forced to sit with a truth that none of them could deny anymore. My mother was the first to break. She covered her face with both hands and cried in a way I had never heard from her before. These weren't frustrated tears or guilt-induced ones. They were heavy, broken tears, the kind that come when a person is forced to see themselves clearly for the first time. "I didn't know," she whispered through trembling fingers. "I didn't know it was that many times." But she had known. Maybe not numerically. Maybe not 47, down to the exact count. But she had known enough to choose avoidance over connection. Still, hearing her say it, hearing that hint of regret, stirred something complicated inside me. A mix of anger, grief, and a small flicker of compassion I wasn't ready to accept yet. Rachel stared at the table, her eyes glassy. She wasn't crying. It was worse. She looked rattled, genuinely rattled. For once, she wasn't the self-appointed moral authority. She wasn't the confident older sister wielding judgment like a weapon. She was just a woman who had realized she built her entire narrative on a foundation of lies she chose to believe because it benefited her. "Maddie," she said quietly, her voice cracking, "why didn't you tell us?" I turned to her, unable to stop the bitter laugh from escaping. "I did. You never listened." Kyle sat back in his chair, arms folded tightly across his chest. His face was pale, his eyes darting between Mom, Rachel, Caleb, and me. "I didn't know she was ignoring you guys," he muttered. "I thought you were exaggerating. I thought you didn't care." Caleb walked over to me slowly and wrapped his arms around my waist. I rested my hands on his shoulders, grounding myself in the warmth of the only person in that room who had stood up for me. Guests whispered among themselves. A few shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to leave or stay. The atmosphere was suffocating, weighted with a combination of shock and overdue accountability. My mother finally lowered her hands. Her face was wet, her mascara smudged. She looked so small in that moment. Small. In a way I hadn't seen since I was a child, watching her crumble under stress she never wanted to explain. She reached a shaky hand toward me. "Maddie," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry. I thought you were staying away because you didn't want to be part of this family anymore. I didn't want to chase you. I didn't want to beg you to care." I took a breath, a long, hard one. "I was trying, Mom. I kept trying. For Caleb. For you. I knocked on your door more times than I can count. I called. I left notes. I tried." She nodded as tears spilled again. "I know that now. I see it. I see everything. But apologies, even sincere ones, don't fix decades of misunderstandings in a single sentence. They are the first stitch in a long process of mending something torn." Rachel stood slowly, as if bracing herself. "I'm sorry, too," she said without her usual dramatics. "I believed you weren't trying. I believed the version of you I made up in my head. I shouldn't have." Kyle murmured something that might have been an apology, though it came out clumsy and awkward, like he didn't fully understand how to express remorse. It didn't matter, because the one apology that meant the most came from the woman who had started this path of pain long before I became a mother myself. My mother walked toward Caleb, kneeling so she was eye level with him. Her hands shook as she reached for his. "Caleb," she whispered, "I don't deserve your kindness. I don't deserve your love after what I did, but I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply sorry." Caleb looked at her with those gentle brown eyes, eyes far wiser than any 8-year-old should ever have to be. "I just wanted you to know we tried," he said quietly. "Me and Mom. We wanted to see you." She pulled him into a hug, crying into his shoulder. He hugged her back, because his heart was still soft, still open. Mine wasn't, not yet. But watching them, I felt something loosen inside me, a small beginning, a tiny shift. After the guests left and the house fell quiet, I stood outside on the porch, breathing in the cool night air. Caleb slipped his hand into mine. "Mom," he said softly, "did I do the right thing?" I looked at him, my brave, sensitive, unbelievably strong little boy. "You told the truth," I said, "and sometimes the truth is the only thing strong enough to save a family." He leaned against me, tired now that the adrenaline had faded. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders, grounding myself in the moment. The final thought that settled in my heart was simple and clear. Families don't fall apart because of distance. They fall apart because people stop seeing each other, stop listening, stop caring. Tonight, my son forced everyone to see again. And for the first time in years, I felt something real. Not healed, not fixed, but finally seen. When I look back at that night, I realized something I had been too scared to admit for years. Families don't break because of one fight. They break because people stop showing up, or worse, pretend they are showing up while quietly pushing others away. For so long, I let myself believe I was the problem. I let the loudest voices redefine who I was, even when their narratives didn't match the truth. But my son, the youngest person in that room, found the courage to do what none of us could. He stood up. He spoke. He revealed the truth in a way no argument, no explanation, no apology ever could. And because of him, the lies collapsed. The blame shifted. And for the first time, my family had to face the reality they'd created. I'm not sure what the future holds. Healing takes time. Trust takes work. And forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. But we took a step forward that night, one honest moment at a time. And that step started with a little boy holding a phone, determined to show the world that love deserves effort. Truth deserves a voice. And families deserve a chance, no matter how broken they may feel. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own family, or if you simply felt the emotion behind our journey, please support the channel. Make sure to like the video, share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful real-life stories. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.